from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I now yield 4 minutes to the distinguished ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, the gentleman from California, Mr. Schiff.
Gentleman from California is recognized for 4 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in opposition to this resolution. If this was oversight, I would be in strong support of any effort to seek production, but it is not. This is not oversight, it is collaboration, with the executive masquerading as oversight. Or if this is oversight, it is oversight of the most obsequious kind. It is oversight in the nature of how may we serve you, dear President? It is oversight that asks, what is your will, dear President? Oversight that says, we are not worthy, dear President. It is oversight that says, we shall seek, but you shall find, Mr. President, because what we obtain, we shall provide to your legal defense team, or we shall selectively leak or misrepresent in your service. It is oversight in the nature of not desiring an outcome, not desiring the production of documents, but rather the production of a fight, the production of a pretext to give the dear President a pretext to fire Rod Rosenstein or Bob Mueller. I have served on the Intelligence Committee now for almost a decade. And while I cannot disclose the number of FISA applications during the course of those 10 years, I can tell you the number of times that my Republican colleagues have sought the underlying investigatory materials behind a specific FISA application, and that number is 1. That case is this case, and that case just happens to implicate our dear President. It is not that there are no areas that call out for oversight right now. There are too many to count. Why is it that after sanctioning ZTE for violating Iran sanctions and violating North Korea sanctions, the President abruptly changed course out of an ostensible concern for Chinese jobs? Is it because the Chinese invested $500 million in a Trump-branded property? That is worthy of oversight. Is the First Family seeking to do business with Gulf or other allies while making U.S. policy? Is U.S. policy for sale? That is worthy of oversight. Is the President seeking to raise postal rates on Amazon to punish the Washington Post and suppress the freedom of press? That is worthy of oversight. But none of this is oversight. Speaker Boehner recently said that the Republican Party was off taking a nap somewhere. If that is so, then despite the best efforts of our capable ranking member, Elijah Cummings, the Government Reform Committee that should be doing this oversight is in the midst of the deepest slumber. Wake up, my colleagues, and do your jobs. Wake up and end this duplicit attack on the Department of Justice and the FBI and our special counsel, because this is surely not oversight. It is not what oversight looks like, but it is what an attack on the rule of law looks like. It is what happens when we whittle away our democracy one piece by terrible piece. When this chapter of our history is written, it will condemn the actions of a president who little understands or respects the institutions of our democracy. But it will reserve some of the harshest criticism for this Congress that enabled him. This Congress that knew its responsibility but failed to live up to it. Wake up, Republican Party. Wake up, my colleagues. The country needs you. May I have an additional 30 seconds?
I grant the gentleman an additional minute.
I thank the
The
gentleman.
gentleman is recognized for 1 additional minute.
Wake up, my colleagues. True oversight when the President occupies the same party as the majority in Congress requires that majority to put country over party. It is incompatible with the corrupting principle of party over everything else. Wake up, my colleagues, and do your jobs. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman.
Mr. Speaker, I now yield 1 minute to the distinguished Democratic Leader of the House, Ms. Pelosi.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the gentleman for yielding. I thank him for his extraordinary leadership in articulating what is right, what honors our oath of office to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, the separation of power contained therein, and the integrity of our judicial system. I also thank our distinguished ranking member of the Intelligence Committee, Mr. Schiff, for his leadership, his courage, and his beautiful and inspirational statement this morning, full of fact, but also full of values. Mr. Speaker, I rise today not only as leader, but also as one who has served on the Intelligence Committee as a member, as a ranking member, and as an ex officio since the early 90s. And I can say, while I've seen a lot in that time, I have never seen anything that has stooped so low on the part of the Republicans as what they are doing today. It is just, it's as if they've said, you take an oath of office to the Constitution, we took an oath of office to Donald Trump. It's shocking. And if many of them are lawyers, I don't know how they justify or reconcile that. And so it is with great dismay that I see them doing violence to this body, to this Constitution, to this judiciary system, and to this country. They are so curious about prying into a legal case, but they don't have the faintest interest in looking into what the Russians did to disrupt our elections. Not one hearing, nothing, no oversight, nothing. Why is that? Why is that? And now they're saying they have a right to know this, that, and the other thing. They have no right to do that. So I'm going to not take up any more time. I've said my piece on this, but I do want to acknowledge that Mr. Schumer and I, as well as Mr. Schiff and Senator Warner, the ranking member on the Senate side, sent a letter to Honorable Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, and to Christopher Wray, the the director of the FBI, saying to them, please, please do not yield on any of this. Your role in preserving the integrity and most importantly, our justice system has become ever more vital. I yield back my time. First of all, I urge a no vote, and I hope that some Republicans will do what is right and urge a no vote on this. This is taking us into very dangerous territory. If the Democrats were in power, I would say the same thing. We wouldn't want to have this access. You shouldn't have this access. This is wrong. Again, if you're honoring your salute and your oath of office to Donald Trump, vote yes. If you're honoring your oath of office to the Constitution of the United States, vote no. I yield back.
Gentlewoman yields back. The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, obviously the gentlewoman from California lays out an unbelievable claim that this is the lowest of low that's ever been seen in this body. I find that just remarkable that that statement could even be made.
The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I'm prepared to close if the other side is.
The
Yes,
gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to repeat. Where's the beginning of it? Oh. What I said before, but I will summarize. The request being made here is for information that the Department of Justice cannot provide because it relates to an ongoing criminal investigation and because some of it would identify informants. The motive is probably simply to politically embarrass the department and provide a means of embarrassing and defaming the special prosecutor and the people associated with him in the department. I will read from a letter that the Deputy Attorney General sent to Senator Grassley and to the Speaker of the House yesterday. He quotes the following, quote, Throughout American history, wise legislators have worked with department officials to limit oversight requests in order to respect the department's duty to protect national security, preserve personal privacy, and insulate investigations from the appearance of interference. For instance, the department sent a letter to a House committee chair in 2000 describing the department's policies on responding to congressional oversight requests. The letter explains, and I'm now quoting from the 2000 letter, "Such inquiries inescapably create the risk that the public and the courts will perceive undue political and congressional influence over law enforcement and litigation decisions. Such inquiries also often seek records and other information that our responsibilities for these matters preclude us from disclosing." It's the end of the quote from the 2000 letter. The letter quotes President Ronald Reagan, who wrote that, quote, "A tradition of accommodation should continue as the primary means of resolving conflicts between the branches," close quote. Regardless of whether an interbranch information request is made by letter or subpoena, the relationship between the branches gives rise to, quote, "an implicit constitutional mandate to reach an accommodation short of full-scale confrontation," close quote from President Reagan. It must not be the case that the department is required to risk damage to reputations, put cases and lives at risk, and invite political interference by opening sensitive files to congressional staff without restriction, close quote from the letter from Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein. That's exactly what these requests would do. They would risk damage to reputations, put cases and lives at risk. Already 2 people, 2 informants have had their identities outed, and invite political interference by opening sensitive files to congressional staff without restriction. We ought to let the special prosecutor, the special counsel, complete his work without hindrance. We ought to see whatever the special counsel finds, react to it as appropriate, perhaps hold hearings into the findings when we see that. All we know about the special counsel so far, unlike all the allegations against him in his investigation, it's a witch hunt, it's this and it's that, all we really know is that there are 20 indictments, 5 guilty pleas, and we know what he's pleaded in court. There have been no leaks. So you can't really say anything about the investigation other than, in this time period, they've already gotten 20 indictments, 5 guilty pleas, including from some of the closest people to the president in his administration and in his campaign. We'll see where it goes from there. These requests are an attempt, I should say, to sabotage the investigation, and we should not go along with it. I reserve the balance of my time.
Balance of his time, the gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
On this vote, the yeas are 226 and the nays are 183, with 1 answering present. The resolution is adopted without objection. A motion to reconsider is laid on the table.